Hi, Kris. Welcome to the Healed and Cash Flowing podcast show. How are you?
Hi, Kat. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Oh my God, I can tell we're going to have a great conversation. So, for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an international opera singer turned transformational coach and certified business consultant. I sang opera professionally for 25 years, and I felt called to come into coaching and consulting. And so I made a really big transition in 2015, even though I had been doing that work really since 2007, and having people come to me and ask me about things that would help them be more in alignment and more on track, career advice, this kind of stuff, ever since, like I said, all the way back to 2007. So now I'm working primarily with creative entrepreneurs and helping them to run their businesses with what I like to call ease, fun, and flow.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. And I love that you said that you officially started 2015, but you were doing it since 2007. Isn't that the truth? How whatever we're called to do, we might have an official start date, but if we look back, we have been doing that work for a very long time. So, how was that transition from an international opera singer for 25 years? Like, how do you say, how do you close that chapter?
It was kind of interesting because I always had, well, while that was my talent from a very young age, and it was my desire to have that career ever since I was a kid. And I always laugh because I always say, both my parents were scientists and they can't figure out what went wrong. Like, how did they get this random opera singer? Like, no one in my family listened to that. That was just not even on anyone's radar. But I absolutely fell in love with it when I heard it myself and decided that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I did. And even as a child, young adult, when people would ask me, oh, well, do you want to sing at the Met, or what do what are your desires? What are your dreams? And even from that age, I had always said, my desire is to be happy, and
Mm.
I will do this for as long as it makes me happy. And I did. I had success with that, and I was good at it. But it came with the development of kind of a love-hate relationship with it.
Mm.
And that really is came from the fact that I put so much pressure on myself
Mm.
to be right and good and perfect, and the industry supported that. It is a very highly rigorous, meticulous industry, and it's taught oftentimes in that right wrong model. And by the way, most of the time you're wrong. So, you kind of, and like I said, I'd been doing it since I was young. So I kind of was always in this place of um, being curated by whether or not it was good, why whether or not it was quote unquote right. And of course, in a business where right or wrong is completely subjective. There's no scorecard that says, you do these things and it's right, and you do these things and it's wrong. It's all someone's opinion. So you could do the best job you could possibly do and still have someone hate it. And that's just the world of art. It's just part of the business. And there's a blessing and a curse to that. It means that you really can't put your focus on making other people like you or approve of you, or having that as your focus. It's an elusive search, if that's where the focus was. So I always had that kind of going back and forth for a long time. um, and it really wasn't until I did my doctorate and did a dissertation in performance anxiety and how the brain
Mm.
works. And I did it from the perspective of, singing and performers, but this really could be likened to anyone, particularly somebody doing public speaking or being out in front of people,
Yeah.
because it's the same thing. You're using your voice. It's,
Yeah.
it's very similar. And when I started doing that, I really started, discovering, something deeper besides just that right wrong model, and really looking at how we react and getting very curious behind the psychology of it. And I really ended up falling in love with teaching and imparting thoughts and advice and watching someone else be able to take that information and do something with it. And I tell you what, that just brought me more joy than doing it myself ever did. And I just naturally transitioned into wanting to do that work more than anything else. And I taught from a perspective of mistakes being natural and normal and nothing more than data. And so I started noticing that as students were coming to me, through school for voice, they were
Mm.
noticing that feeling that I had growing up through that educational system of coming in and needing to deliver, coming in and needing to be right, coming in and needing to hide all of your problems that you're having because that's not what you're here to do. Um, that those constrictions affect the voice so obviously,
Wow.
that I provided an environment, or at least attempted to provide an environment to where I said, you are loved and accepted for who you are and what you are at this very moment, no matter what that is. Let's see if we can make some sound. And so by taking that constriction and that pressure away, there was a freedom to that. And of course, it automatically translated to the voice. And then the next thing I knew, people were starting to ask me questions about other parts of life. Well, what if we're having so much success, opening up, and freeing the voice, well, what about this other restriction that I'm having? What about this other problem that I'm having? And that really kind of inspired me to kind of look at a broader picture and feel called to serve in a way that would provide a bigger ripple effect. And so I made the decision to leave that world of academia and teaching in that particular way, and to start coaching and consulting full time. And I've been doing it ever since.
That's amazing. It's incredible how you trying to discover how you make yourself, how to help yourself, discover a way to help others. And I love that you have the experience. You know exactly how they were feeling because you have been feeling like that for a very long time. That's incredible. So how do you go from teaching, now people are asking you questions? How do you come up with, how do you started landed in the what do you call yourself, the money archetypes?
Yeah, I did. Coming from, two backgrounds that are historically known for not being financially lucrative,
Yeah.
education and the arts, right? Coming from those backgrounds, I grew up being conditioned by a system that said, oh, your talent is what's most important. It's not about the money.
Yeah.
You'll never make money doing this, and these kinds of beliefs. And while I do subscribe to the belief that it's not about the money, to use that as an excuse to not make money, I think is something that needs attention. And so there was a lot of that kind of victim archetype of, well, that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
that we can't possibly make a lot of money, so we need to really pour it into the love of the art. It's about the love of the art. And I really, I was in that same system. But I always felt like there was, you look out there and you're like, okay, well, wait a minute, not everybody's in this system. There's some people doing really well out here.
Yeah.
So I knew it was there were other possibilities. And so I got curious about that, but I was still very much into the conditioning of what the educational system, the industry, everybody in it, the teachers, your colleagues, and everyone had come to the consensus of, which is that this is a financially poor field.
Mm.
And so I had that as part of my conditioning. And I say conditioning because I know now, speaking from, the truth of who I am, and I think the truth of who we all are, that we are all born with the birthright to financially flourish. Like
Yeah.
no one is born into a future of poverty. You may be born into poverty, but that does not dictate anything for you moving forward. So I realized that I had been conditioned to believe through my own experiences and through the experiences and teachings of others that this was it. This was all you could have. So when I transitioned into coaching and into consulting, I had very much the same mindset, So I had, it's a dollars for hours system is what
Yeah.
these kinds of art and teaching things typically come from. And so what we've taught people as artists and as creatives is that we're only worth X amount, or that we're worth, it's a minute system. You're counting the minutes instead of a value-based system.
Yeah.
So, it was hard for me at first to think about making a larger amount of money. It was, it was something that I had never, it hadn't been in my world. I hadn't conceived of it. So, I started raising my prices ever so. I mean, I'm a person with a doctorate over here and
Yeah.
decades of experience, and was just scared to death to charge anything out of quote unquote range of what I had come to know as acceptable. And even at the price that I was at, some other people would judge that as too much. So when I moved and left the area I was in Southern California, moved up to Northern California, and I ended up buying a house up here, um, there were many issues with the house that were unbeknownst to me when I bought it. And there was, unfortunately, some deception at play by the seller. And there were some huge things that had to be fixed. Um, I had never written a $10,000 check before.
Oh, yeah.
And I had never had those kinds of experiences. And I noticed that it just squeezed my heart as if my life was on the line. And between not having comfort spending money, not having comfort spending money on myself, and also having the discomfort of imposing that anybody else pay more, I just realized my own mindset around money needed some work. And so I set off to learn about that, to see where I was in that process. And it was so beneficial to me to understand the archetypes that were present in me. And in the money mindset program that I did and the work that I do, we all have three. So there's one that's a primary archetype and two secondary ones. Because one archetype, really, in any system that you use, you'll notice in archetypal systems, if you take one of those quizzes online or something, they give you the one, you're a this, right? Even Zodiac, right? You're a Leo, I'm a Leo, right? You're just a surprise, I know. You're a this, but when you really get into the system, you realize that's not nearly enough information. There's aspects beyond that help us to understand the depth and complexity of who we are as people. So one is never enough. And it really showed me why I was having so much of this internal struggle with myself, because part of me wanted to go for it and try things and take risks. And the other part of me thought that was nuts. And there's no way I should do that. And the other part of me, felt horrified, to even raise my rates, $10. And I started to realize through that work and getting more into the industry that I was in a different field. I was not even on the playing level of what was going on. And I started to realize that if I'd stayed at that place, that the resentment that people normally feel or start to feel when they give and give and give and give and do not receive in return in some way that matches their value. I'm not saying all value is monetary. It's not, but it better match in some way so that you can continue to flourish. Otherwise, if you have nurture archetype, or you're a heart-centered person or a giver, in that way, which so many, creative entrepreneurs are,
Creative,
so many,
yeah,
yeah,
for
people
sure. Yeah.
are, that there's such a giving, and there's no thinking about the fact that, that runs out
Yeah.
eventually,
Or
unless
it
you,
should. It should run out.
yeah, unless you are refilled. And when you're
Yeah.
constantly looking out there for something to refill you, so expecting someone to recognize how wonderful you are, recognize your talent,
Yeah.
recognize your value, and just give it to you, as opposed to you doing that for yourself,
Yeah.
that eventually that well is going to run dry, and you're going to become your own charity, as
Yeah.
opposed to, it's one of the most, wonderful things that a business coach ever said, to to me, that I heard was, don't confuse your business with your charity. There's nothing wrong with charity. It's wonderful. But if you confuse your business with it, then eventually you're going to be the charity, because there's going to be nothing left. And it was just a wonderful wake up call that, hey, you need to, like, put on your courage pants
Yeah.
and step into your value, and start to, offer that, and offer people the opportunity to come with you. Right? I love that, that phrase, like, as I rise up, others rise up with me.
Mhm.
And I had been used to, as so many are, so many healers, creatives,
Yeah.
spiritual entrepreneurs, so often, let me bring myself down to meet you. Um, but really, that's just showing that person and confirming to that person, hey, staying here and not rising up is the direction we're going in. And I think it's really the opposite of what everybody wants. We all want to grow, we all want to rise up. And stepping into that was absolutely imperative in order for me to serve as an example of what I wanted to see in everybody else. I couldn't tell them, oh, I want to see you flourish financially, and not do it myself. So I've always kind of been okay, I'll do it first.
Yeah.
and then and then if you want to come with me, you can absolutely come with me.
Powerful. Oh my God, you said so many awesome stuff. I was taking notes, but I was also trying to pay attention because it was so good. As someone that has been there and had to change, because yes, I think we have an order, or people can smell it on us or see it, that when you're a giver, people that are takers will come. It's inevitable that they will come and, like, she or he is a giver, and I could just take. And if you don't put those parameters in place, people will run you dry, and then wonder why you're mad or why you're not giving anymore. It's like you take in everything, everything that I had, and then some. So what happened after you did this amazing work and realized, listen, I have a PhD, I have all this experience, I get to charge whatever I want? That's what happened in your business, and what happened even in how you saw yourself.
Well, it really shifted. It shifted the way that I already knew. Like, I knew for myself, like, I know I have this talent. I know I have this value to offer. I know I have, an ability, an innate ability to tap into my intuition, to serve as a conduit, to give people their words when they don't have them. And I don't take credit for that. It's just a gift that I have. I knew I had that ability, and I knew it was valuable. So really what I was doing was just saying, okay, I'm ready to allow, the financial side of this to align with what I already know to be
Mm,
true. So when I did that, I was scared to death, because, like I said, I came from a world where who does that? But of course, it was completely natural in the executive world, the corporate world,
yeah.
the public speaking world, the entrepreneurial world, perfectly normal. But once I did that, like I said, I was so scared that I was going to lose uh, everyone. I was going to have to
Mm,
start all over, because, hey, I work with creatives. Hey, I work with artists. Who's going to be able to do this? And another thing that I was said to me that I've always held on to was, don't put your hand in somebody else's wallet.
mm,
Like, you don't, that's awfully assumptive to say, oh, well, you wouldn't. How would you like it if I said to you, Kat, I have the exact thing that you need that's going to help you to create a life and a world that you want. But you know what? I'm not going to tell you about it because I don't think you can afford it. Have a good day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I realized, that not saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. And if you want to come with me, I would love to bring you with me. If not, I totally understand. I have no ego in it. I want to have, the right people at the right time in the right place. And when I stepped into that, and the biggest helpful part of that was detaching myself
Mm,
from the outcome. So from the moment I started that, even though I was scared, I knew that I was scared because of my old beliefs, not because
mm,
that was my truth. And I knew that what I wanted was not to quote unquote get a client. What I wanted was to be of service to the right person when it was in alignment for them and for me. So I realized that in order to do that, I was going to have to step into offering the opportunity without having any attachment whatsoever to whether someone said yes or no. And I've been like that since the beginning. And it's the way I feel today. It's integrity for who I am. I don't want to work with someone if it's not in alignment for them and me.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's not what I'm here for. So if somebody says yes and I feel like it's a good match and it's a good alignment, wonderful. We're going to have a great time. And if it's a no, and if it's coming from their truth, right? If it's coming from fear, then I want to discuss that with them and see if that's actually what they want to buy into. Do you want to buy into your fear? Do you want to buy into your truth? If you're just saying no because you're buying into your fear, let's talk about that. And if it's still that's the case, if that's where you're at, then that's okay. That means you need more time to figure out, what you're ready to step into. You're on your timeline, not mine. So, but if it's a yes, because we realize, oh my gosh, I'm just scared, which I always was. That's how I always felt, especially investing in myself. I was so scared to invest in myself, because I grew up in a household that was just very financially conservative.
Mm,
When you found the good deal, and you didn't splurge on things. You were very responsible, and I took that to heart. I was the person who would go to thrift stores to find my clothes or anything because I was so excited that I could get a good deal you know um as opposed to my brother was just the opposite. We if we were given allowances as kids for school clothes or something, I would get as many pieces as I could, find as many the best deals that I could. My brother would get like two or three things, but they would all be of exceptional quality.
mm,
And so
yeah.
it was so interesting to see how, and there's no right or wrong to that.
Yeah.
There's not one that's bad and one that's good or one that's better or not. It's just you could see the difference in what was important to us and how we reacted, our plan based on that. So to me, it's really about, learning about who you are, learning about the way that you do things, really checking in with whether or not that's your truth. And what I find is that 9 times out of 10, it's not, at least not
No,
to
that,
begin
yeah.
with.
That's so good. I just want to stop there for a second and let that land for people listening or watching. Is looking at that, and I was doing a sweat lodge for the first time on Sunday, and it was incredible. And one of the things that I said while I was in there is that I was letting go to current and generational programming that no longer serve me. And we don't realize that programming is so many things that we don't even realize, right? And what you just said is, this is mine. This is true to me. This is my grandmother's thinking. This is my mom's thinking. Is this something that is no longer true? Did you ever, when you were in your transformation and you were past it, did you ever find yourself acting from old behavior that was not even like for all the information that was no longer truth? Like if you were undercharging and now you're charging and you don't have enough money, but now you have enough money and your mind goes like, oh, we don't have the money. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not true. Like I have it.
What 100%. And you made such a good point, Kat, and that's that the amount of money you have has nothing to do with how you feel about money.
Yeah.
We know people who have very little money who feel like the richest people in the world. And we know people who have millions who are so stuck in scarcity. They feel like
Yeah.
they're always going to lose it, and they're constantly in stress from that place. So the amount is actually insignificant. It really has to do with what your belief system is, and your conscious awareness, because as you mentioned, there's also unconscious beliefs.
Yeah.
So if we are finding we are out of alignment, or having conflict, especially internal conflict about money in some way, and we don't quote unquote know why, then that somewhere in there is an unconscious belief that we probably developed as a child. We don't even
Yeah.
remember. Somebody said something like, we think money grows on trees, or one of these things, that somebody said as we were a child, or we saw parents arguing about money, or we saw, mom crying, because, something happened with bills, or dad being frustrated, or whatever it is that people experienced. And then as a little 4-year-old, automatically just not even saying a word, and imprinting that message of, oh, money must be scary.
Mhm.
Oh, money causes problems. Oh, and these things that, that become part of us without us even knowing it. We have to go back and do that work. We have to start getting real curious about where that conflict, where that discord, where that discomfort comes from, because when we are actually in our truth, there's no discomfort about
Yeah.
money. Money is a wonderful thing. And if anyone listening is hearing that and thinking, well, I don't know about that, that'll tell you right there,
Yeah.
that there's something in there that's causing that judgment about money, that money somehow could be quote unquote good or bad,
Yeah.
which it's not. To me, money is just another form of energy, and it
For sure.
flows, and it
It
either
flows.
flows or
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Correct. I was just gonna say, yeah, it flows if we let it. Because I notice
Right.
when I want something and I don't have any preconceived notions about it, I just want it and I release it. I notice that I get it so quickly because I'm not blocking it, because I'm just wanting it and I let it go. And I
Yes.
think it relates, probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong, relates to money. When you feel allow it to come, you're like, okay, I need, or I desire, probably desire is a better word, this amount for X, Y, and Z reason. If you're not stressed about it, if you're not just like conflicted about it, it's gonna come because you just cope it.
Stress, constriction, fear-based energy of other kind is a block. It
Yeah.
creates block. Money, like I said, is like energy, and energy loves flow. Energy likes to flow. And when you constrict it, then it's not free to do what it wants. And I think where a lot of people get stuck is they think, I want money to come to me, but also I don't want to spend any money. I don't want any money going out. I'm not going to do anything with money. I'm so afraid of losing money. And you can't have it that way. You just
Yeah.
said it's a one-way street. And it's not, it's never, energy is never a one-way street. So you have to be okay with release. And of course, we want to be responsible with it. I'm not saying we're being irresponsible by letting money go, but you can't be complaining about bills. You can't be saying money's evil. You can't be saying money ruins people's lives. I hate money. I wish I didn't have to deal with my money. I don't even want to look at my bank account. You can't be saying stuff like that and also saying, "Oh, I wish I had money. I wish money would come to me. Oh, I just wish I could have." It doesn't work that way. Like you
Yeah.
have to make a relationship with it, and pour love into it if you want to receive love from it. You can't, I mean,
For
think
sure.
about any person you have a relationship with. If you're like, I'm going to treat you like trash, but I would like you to love me, that probably is not a relationship that would go very well.
Yeah.
So it's the same exact thing with anything. If everything's energy, and I mean, look at science, it is. We're all made up of
Yeah.
particles, every single thing, like me and this cup are exchanging atoms, like it's all energy. So if that's the case, you can't treat something like money different than you would any other relationship
Yeah.
and expect it to go well.
So true. So we have more than likely a lot of people watching or listening that are creative entrepreneurs, that are spiritual entrepreneurs, that have amazing gifts and talents. And at first, a while ago, you mentioned that there are three archetypes. One is a primary, two are secondaries. Do you have um, something? a way of explaining that is not too complicated for anybody that can just grasp the concept.
Sure, absolutely. So you can think about money archetypes, like I said, any archetype system, a system that, most people are at least aware of, even if they don't know the information, is something like our zodiac system.
Yeah.
So if you know that you're, a Cancer or a Leo or a Taurus or an Aries, right? You have this information about your archetype. And an archetype is nothing more than something that's kind of universally described that everyone would understand. So we think about like mother is an archetype. Right. And mother has certain qualities, being protective, teaching, nurturing, caring, disciplining, right? There's all these qualities of mother. Now, we all also know that we can have good qualities
Mhm.
or high frequency qualities of mother, love, unconditional love, caring, nurturing, sharing, teaching, lifting up, right? Providing these kinds of things. And we can also have lower frequency qualities of mother, overbearing, judgmental, jealous, ridiculing, criticizing, cold, punishing, these kinds of things. So mother is not something you can qualify as bad or good. Every mother has the ability to have quote unquote good qualities, good energy, high frequency energy qualities, and also low frequency energy or qualities. And sometimes, because we're human, it goes back and forth sometimes, right? So money archetypes are the exact same way. And there's, in the system I use, there are 8 total. So I have an assessment that people take. And then based on the assessment, which is really just taking people through belief statements and how much they resonate with those belief statements, it returns the top archetypes that somebody would resonate with, which would represent them. So an example of this is something like I spoke of earlier, nurturer, which comes up a lot for, people who care.
Yeah.
People are heart-centered people, and oftentimes people who have that desire to serve, they're caring people, gravitate towards these kinds of creative careers, healing careers, spiritual entrepreneurship, and so forth. So there's this desire to give, this desire to be of service, right? In the high frequency of that, in the gifts of that archetype of nurturer, it's full of generosity. It's full of service, full of giving. On the lower frequency side, it becomes martyrdom. It becomes giving yourself away to the point of your own detriment. It becomes that frustration and bitterness from expecting someone else to nurture you in return and then not getting it a lot of times. So, nurture in itself, a wonderful, wonderful, they're all wonderful archetypes. There's no such thing as a bad or good archetype, right? But they all have these higher and lower energy centers for them. And our goal is to learn about what that entails and then to see how on the lower side it could bring us into disempowerment with money and how we can seek to utilize the higher side of that archetype to empower us to live our truth and to financially flourish. And when you start putting them all together, like I said, if you have 3 and you're working with those, you start to see where you would have conflict, where you would reinforce certain ideas for yourself, and how you can truly build a powerful belief system, which is going to be the foundation of any financial manifestation, any financial flourishing is going to be your belief system. Like I said, you can't want to have money come to you, but secretly believe that you're not worth it. Secretly believe that you don't deserve it, that it's not possible for you. Others maybe, but not you. So that is some of the work that we end up doing through that. We use the archetypes as a very, I love them because it's a very simple way to get it. Like,
Yeah.
here's some information you can hold on to while we're also starting to work through, hey, what needs to be untangled in you specifically. And that
That's
kind of
so good.
gives us an intro to that.
Yeah, so it's like looking under the hood. You cannot start fixing things if you don't know what needs fixing or updating. So it's
That's
like,
right.
let's see what we're working with and let's work on that. So I love that somebody comes to
That's
you,
right.
and is that something that you give people, they can get access to this assessment?
Yeah. People can do that. Do that when we do one-on-one work. I always have everybody do the money archetypes assessment, and then I have different kind of levels of introduction to that. Like just depending on where someone's at. Like I don't, you know, you never. Well, it's my belief that if someone wants to gain knowledge that and they're at a certain place in their life, that I want to give them something for where they're at. And it may not be doing, a big coaching program, or maybe they're at that point and they do want to do something. They're ready. They've been ready, and they just realize I'm ready to jump into that. So I kind of see it as layers, an honoring, if you will, of where someone is at, so that there's an opportunity, regardless. If you have, something, if you are just looking right now and you don't have money to invest in yourself, not saying you don't, but actually do. If you truly don't, there are books to read, there are guides to get, there are people to talk to, there are ways to bring that information to yourself. If you're ready to invest in yourself, but there's not much, okay, so we want to look at maybe like, get your archetypes done and learn about them. And that's enough. Now you go study, or maybe now, oh, I'm ready for this next level. I want to work with somebody on that. So there's no limitation unless you say so. There's always something. I provide different levels like that, but even when that's not provided, it exists. You just have to look for it instead of going into a type of belief that says, well, I don't have a lot of money, so I can't do that. Or, well, it's only for some people. Those are those exact same beliefs that are keeping us from being able to flourish, not just financially, but in all aspects of our life. Because really, how you do money is how you do everything.
Anything. Yeah, that's so true. And I have this feeling that people that are listening or watching right now are probably getting really hopeful because maybe they thought this is something that I'm gonna die with. This is something that a way of thinking. But I am hearing that this is something that you can work on, something that you specialize in, and that you were able to overcome yourself, which is incredible. And the fact that you transitioned to a field that you were very much personally familiar with, and now you're helping people on the other side of it. It's so amazing and so exciting. So happy for you because it must be so rewarding to see people's wheels start to change after they're
Oh,
working with you, right?
it is my joy. It's my absolute joy. And I look back at my life, and I used to be a person who said, I can't believe I used to say this. I feel so sorry for this version of myself. But I used to say, there's not very many things that bring me joy. I don't use the word joy to describe very many things
Um,
when I would feel joy all of a sudden. And I look back at that, and I'm so grateful for the work that I have done on myself to bring me to the point where it's very difficult for me to find a moment in a day that isn't filled with joy. I live in that space now. And I'll just from what you were saying a second ago about going on my own journey, I'll give you more juice than that. Before I was in that particular position, I was such a nurturer and such a giver and a provider that I actually had to file for bankruptcy because I had given my ex-husband's permission to use my bank account, my credit cards, my credit, because they
wow.
didn't have any. So I thought, oh, well, here comes the savior. Let me
Yeah.
come on in and
Bum,
save the
bum. Here
day
comes
for
the
this
cake and
wonderful
everything.
person. Yeah, exactly. And what I realize now looking back to that, with while that was done with heart and good intention, what it really was ego. What
Mm,
it really was feeling like I had more value and worth because I could do something for someone else that they couldn't do for themselves. But what it really ended up doing is putting us both in a bad position because
yeah.
guess what? At the end of the day, when their habits hadn't changed and
Yeah.
mine had run out, guess who was stuck with the
Yeah. With the
bankruptcy? Me,
burden.
not
Yeah.
them, me.
Wow. Wow. That's
So it
powerful.
it, it taught me, um, that at the end of the day, the only person you're accountable to is yourself.
Yeah.
And if you choose to be in a relationship with someone else who has not figured out financial responsibility, then your job is to encourage them to do that work, not to step in and do it for them.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, then you also become, part of that.
Yeah.
And it's
I think
unfortunate.
you just helped a lot of people right now when you just said, if their patterns have not changed, if their habits have not changed, if they're still in the process, I'm gonna love you from all the way over here
Mhm.
while you work on that
Well, and I think
and
people
not
get
jump
caught
back
up,
in them with them.
yeah, they get caught up in two different sides, right? And I call this, I like this kind of triangle of energy, and on this lower plane of energy, this lower frequency energy, we've got two different ways that we can interact with people. We've got
Yeah.
repressive, which is what I was. Give everything
Mm,
away, take care of everything, be the end all be all for the
yeah.
person, even at your own sacrifice. On this other side down here, we have a reactive. I'm not going to be in a relationship with someone like that. I don't have, you need to be this, and this, right? And really putting this rigid set of expectations on a person, even if it's an amazing person.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us, I signed me up for being an amazing person who was not in a great situation, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then the third in this higher part of our triangle, this higher frequency part is responsive. So
Mm,
repressive, reactive, and responsive. If we respond, we have a way of observing and appreciating and having compassion, empathy without taking on the energy of the other person for ourselves. So somebody else's financial responsibilities, financial beliefs, financial behaviors are something that we can observe, see without judgment, but also without taking that kind of blanket, oh, well, I have love for you, so now all your problems are mine, and thinking that somehow you should now be responsible, for that. Money boundaries are your friends,
yeah.
especially with people you love.
Mm. Absolutely. I remember a friend a long time ago. I was in a situation. I had my cell phone plan with somebody else that was forever running up the plan. It was like a family plan. They used up 90%. There were three people on the plan. She used up 90% of the plan. And this is a relative. And unbeknownst to me, the bill got rolled up and then we got shut down and I needed my phone. So I asked a friend to help me for like 4 days. I'm like, I'm going to, like I just need it quickly. And she said something to me that was so helpful. She's like, I would love to help you. What is the date that you will give me the money back?
Mhm.
And I was immediately impressed. I'm like, oh my God, I have never done this before. I have lent money before, but I never had that boundary of, I would love to. When is the date that I will get this money back? And this happened over 10 years ago, but I never forgot it because it was so generous and so kind for her to give me that lesson. So I think, like you said, money boundaries, especially people that you love, will avoid a lot of headaches and a lot of pain down the line because you're looking out for them as much as they're looking out for you as well.
That's right. And like you said, like we were talking about how you do money is how you do everything. So
Yeah,
if you don't have boundaries around money, then you probably don't have boundaries around the way you'd like to be treated. You don't
yeah,
have boundaries around what's acceptable and not acceptable into your environment. And so again, you start to notice this, like you mentioned with the family, a lot of this stuff happens like, well, oh, we know she's doing that, but nobody says anything, or if they do,
yeah,
and it causes such a conflict and a divide when it never had to be that way in the first place. If we had set up like your friend did for you,
yeah,
these are the expectations. I'm
yeah,
going to establish expectations for you, and I expect you to honor them.
yes,
And so it
absolutely.
makes it so much more easy for people to understand where they're at, and it creates discipline in a way. And discipline is an interesting word because a lot of people don't like it.
Yeah,
They think that it is meant as a punishment. And really, if you think about it, the reason that we put discipline in place is for safety,
mm,
right? A child is disciplined, when they run out in the street or if they don't listen, because doing these kinds of things that could cause them harm, they need to understand that,
yeah,
Right. So discipline really isn't intended. And of course, there are extremes to this, and
Yeah,
you can, but as a general rule, discipline really equals love and safety. So when we are being disciplined with our money, when we are, and not tight,
yeah,
disciplined, not
discipline.
constricted, disciplined, then what we are showing to that relationship, whether it's money or a person, a spouse, a child, a friend, whoever is a coworker, what we're doing is saying, I love and respect you enough to set a boundary.
Yeah, for sure. And that can be very, very hard for creators and givers to say no, but that can be the most loving thing you can do for somebody else is to say, I love you, and I'm still saying no.
Well, and what you mentioned also that's so important for people to realize in that perspective is that it's not your job to let people to try to make people have a certain experience. So when you
Yeah,
say no, another person gets to have their own experience
yeah,
as to what that means to them. If they go, okay, then that's their experience. If they get mad and call you
yeah,
names, that has nothing to do with you.
yeah,
Allow them to have their own experience. You don't
yeah.
need you don't need to be responsible for that. And
No,
I
no,
realized for myself how often I was um, either trying to curate someone's experience or trying to do things with them or for them, and
yeah,
and what I realized was how enabling that was. I was not allowing them because I cared, but it was what I call misguided care. Because through my care, I was doing things for them and enabling them to not learn how to do it themselves or to rely on me, neither of which are healthy, right? In a sustainable way. I'm not talking about like every once in a while type things. Obviously, there's compromise and give and take, but I'm talking about as a
yeah,
general rule, when you're constantly stepping in to quote unquote save the day, show
yeah,
someone how to do something, do it better because your way you think your way is faster or better,
yeah,
then what you're doing is robbing that person of their own experience, just because you don't want to watch them struggle.
yeah. That's
And
so true.
sometimes we need that struggle. We need to struggle
Yeah,
through that. So your only job is to say, hey, I notice, I see, or I notice. I learned this from my social emotional arts certification, which I found to be so helpful when working with people, especially in relationships that are close to us. Using I see, I notice to simply observe. I notice you seem a little frustrated.
mm,
Not you're frustrated.
yeah,
I can't tell you how you feel. I can just tell you
no,
what I see. I
yeah,
see, or I notice that you seem a little frustrated. Would you like some help? Instead of, here, let me help you. Here, let me do that for you. Oh, here, there's an easier way to do that. Would you like some help? So that the person has the opportunity to A, learn to ask for help, or
yeah.
B, say no, thank you, and continue to struggle because they want to figure it out
They
by
do. They do.
themselves.
It's so funny. I remember years ago when I first gave my daughter the chore of doing the dishes. That was her job. She was very angry, and she was very frustrated. She says, "I don't want to do the dishes." And I said, "Honey, I don't know where I got this wisdom, but it was genius. It worked like a charm." I said, "Honey, you don't have to want to do the dishes. You just have to do them." And I saw this light on her eyes, like I don't know if she thought I needed her to be happy doing this. I didn't. As long as the dishes got done, I was happy as a clam. So I could see like there were no more complaints. She probably had like a tight face or something. I'm like, you get to be mad about it. I just need my dishes washed. So I think the more we allow people to live their consequences and have their temper tantrum, because in reality, they were expecting a different reaction and you said no, it is valid for them to be upset. It is valid for them to
Absolutely.
have wanted something different.
Absolutely. It's okay. And this
Yeah.
is so challenging for so many heart-centered people, for nurturers. It's so challenging to understand sometimes. It's okay for other people to express negative emotions. It's okay for them to have their own experience. You don't need to try to make them better or try to make them have a certain experience. Let them live. let them have that for themselves, and it's so empowering to release yourself of that responsibility, one that was never yours to take
To
in the
begin
first
with. Yeah, for
place.
sure. For sure. Oh my
And
God.
as
I
far
can't
as
believe.
what you were saying with your daughter, there's these kind of steps, right? And it gets to the point where you start to realize, and this is why I do so much in my coaching, is to help people understand that having an emotion initially is is natural. No matter what the emotion is, it's natural. We don't want to shut ourselves off to any emotion. You want to allow yourself to experience humanity, right, as it was intended to be experienced. But once you have experienced that initial part of that emotion, now it becomes a choice.
Yes.
And you can consciously choose to stay in that emotion, like anger, or you can consciously choose to redirect that in another way. And if you are consciously choosing, even if you don't realize you're doing it, if you are consciously, even by default, choosing to stay in a negative emotion, that's self-sabotage. You're
That's beautiful.
creating that world for yourself, and you can choose to leave it anytime you want.
That's so good. Oh my God, you just free so many people right now. And I cannot believe the time has gone by so fast. I'm
Oh,
gonna have to invite you again because we just had so many aha moments, so many nuggets that I was able to write down and appreciate from our conversation. So is there a way that people can enjoy more of this from you?
yeah, sure. People are welcome to connect with me online. You can find more about the work that I do with money mindset and self-sabotage and kind of transformational work over on my website. It's krisdriskill.com. And Kat will have it in the show notes because I know the spelling's a little unique.
Yes.
And then I'm on Instagram under Kris Driskill _ official, and on Facebook under my business's name, which is Gilded Within. And that name really comes from my belief that the work that we have to do in order to flourish in the world comes from the inside first. And if we create that gilding within us, then the outside has the opportunity to match that. It's backwards from what the world teaches us, that we should go out there and grab all the things that we can so that we could feel good within. But we know
Yeah.
for a fact that that doesn't work, and that's not sustainable. That joy or pleasure or fulfillment is very fleeting. However, if we do it for ourselves, from ourselves, then what we're putting out is going to start being reflected in our world automatically.
Oh my God, so good. And I think you have prepared something special for our audience.
Yeah, I do. I have a special little free guide that you guys can download called "Break Free from Money Fear Now." Money fear is really what holds us back from money. So if we can release ourselves from the fear of it, then we can start to open that flow back up. So I will give you the link to that,
Yeah,
and
yes.
you guys can go over to the website and download that for absolutely free. And then if you get interested in money archetype work, if you want to learn your archetypes and do some of that work with me, there's something in that at the end of that guide that gives you some options, and you're welcome to contact me and choose one of those, and step into your own power for yourself. That's what I realized, is that any of the work I did was not an investment in the work. It was an investment in myself.
Yeah.
So, whatever level you're at, that's what I will leave you with, is that, investing in yourself is the best investment you could ever make.
Oh, for sure. I'm so excited. Yeah. So we'll make sure to add all these links on the blog post so people that are watching or listening can go and run to break free from money fear now. I love the title. That was amazing.
Thank you.
And then where do you hang out the most? You hang out the most on Instagram or Facebook?
Um, you know, I it's funny that you're saying this. I am in a place right now. People can find me on either one.
Yes.
I'm definitely on both of them all the time, but I'm actually starting to make little shorts that will go along with the saboteurs that I have created. These characters that I've created that show us how we
Mm,
self-sabotage.
yep.
And those will probably be on Instagram or TikTok. I
Okay.
haven't started TikTok. at this point.
Well,
But
we don't even know if it's gonna be there long enough. I'm like,
maybe,
we're
maybe.
all waiting with bated breath. We don't know.
Well, yeah, if you want to see the actual characters, you can go see them on my website. You can see the
Okay,
stills of
cool.
them and see the descriptions of them. They're pretty
Okay,
funny
okay.
because I see this work. I mean, like self-sabotage work, healing work, money work is already serious enough. Like we don't
Yes,
need to put more seriousness or more pressure or more heaviness or weightiness on this. I really see this as something we can bring lightness to, not give ourselves such a hard time, have fun with it,
yes.
and realize that it's just part of being human and that it's okay.
It is so okay. Oh my God, it has been such a pleasure to be with you today and to learn more about how you help people like us, people that are helpers and givers, and making it easier for them to be abundant also in finances. So thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing.
My absolute pleasure. It's a joy, like I said, a joy and absolute honor to be here. You're amazing, and I'm so happy to share time with you. And I believe, this flourishing is for all of us.
Yes, it is. It's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much. There you have it, guys. This has been such a beautiful conversation, and it's so timely for the time of year where you don't have to change who you are. You don't have to stop being the amazing giver and lover that you are. You can set boundaries. I know sometimes people think that that's the B word, but boundaries are beautiful, especially when it comes to your finances, especially when it comes to your resources are have been given to you for a reason, and now you have so many tips and tricks that you can use. Make sure that you visit the blog post where you get all the information from Kris so you can get all these amazing goodies so you can have that abundant life that you have been wanting. Please know that I love you, that I'm rooting for you, and I'm going to see you super duper soon.